My family chose my sister over me, so I took back the one thing they valued most. So friends, pull up a chair. This isn't just a story. It's an autopsy of a family, my family. And I'm the one who finally picked up the scalpel. They just found out that the roof over their heads, the foundation they've taken for granted for the last decade, belongs to me. And as of this morning, a formal, court-approved eviction notice is taped to their front door, a stark white flag against the faded paint. But before you label me the villain, before you clutch your pearls and talk about blood being thicker than water, you need to understand the years of quiet erosion, the death by 1,000 paper cuts, that led to this nuclear option. This is the story of how the family banker finally foreclosed. I'm Lena, 34 years old, and I've spent my entire life playing a role I never auditioned for, the practical one. In the family lexicon, practical is a synonym for reliable, unemotional, and ultimately, invisible. It's the person you call when the pipes burst, not when you want to share joy. My younger sister, Bianca, is 30, and her title is Free Spirit. That's the generous term for chronically unaccountable, a human hurricane of charisma and chaos that everyone else is expected to clean up after. The golden child/scapegoat dynamic wasn't something that developed. It was baked into our DNA from the beginning. I have memories, sharp and clear as shattered glass, that illustrate the divide. When I was 12, I spent a year saving my allowance and birthday money to buy a professional-grade art set. I hid it in my closet, a secret treasure. Bianca, who was 8, found it, decided the oil paints would look better smeared on her bedroom wall, and destroyed every single tube. My mother's response wasn't fury at the destruction or sympathy for my loss. It was a weary sigh. "Lena, you should have known better than to leave something like that where your sister could find it." She's just expressive. My punishment was being told I needed to be more responsible with my things. Bianca got ice cream to calm her down from the stress of being scolded. This pattern set the tone for everything. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my dad's comment was, "We never had to worry about you." It was meant as a compliment, but it felt like a dismissal. When Bianca barely scraped by with a C average, they threw her a "you did it" party, celebrating the sheer fact of her not failing. When I bought my first car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic I paid for with every penny from my after-school job, my dad spent an hour pointing out every scratch and asking if I'd had a mechanic look at the transmission. When Bianca, at 17, took the family SUV without permission and wrapped it around a fire hydrant, my mother wept at the hospital, holding her and repeating, "My baby, my poor baby, you must have been so scared." I learned early that excellence was my baseline, and mediocrity from Bianca was a cause for celebration. So I stopped seeking their applause. I put my head down and built a life with my own 2 hands. I worked full-time while getting my accounting degree, surviving on caffeine and determination. I graduated, landed a job at a reputable firm, and lived in a studio apartment so small I could cook dinner while sitting on my bed. I threw every spare cent at my student loans, watching the balance shrink with a grim satisfaction that was its own reward. I paid them off in 5 years. Meanwhile, Bianca was on her 5th calling. There was the yoga instructor phase, funded by my parents for her certification. The life coaching endeavor, they paid for her website. The failed Etsy store selling beaded dream catchers, they were her primary customers. Each failure was met not with criticism, but with adoring praise for her courage to try. The real turning point, the moment the foundation of our family's fragile stability cracked, came 7 years ago. My dad's small business, a custom furniture workshop, was circling the drain. A combination of bad debts, rising material costs, and his own stubborn refusal to adapt had left him drowning. The bank was days away from foreclosing on the house. The call I got wasn't a chat. It was a barely concealed panic attack from my mother. "Lena, you have to come over. Now. It's your father." I drove over, my stomach in knots. They were sitting at the worn kitchen table, a monument to 1,000 family meals that now felt like lies. The table was littered with unopened bills and stark, official-looking letters with words like "Final Notice" stamped in red. My dad looked 10 years older. My mom's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Lena," my dad began, his voice gravelly with shame. "We're in a bind. The bank," my mom whispered, as if saying it louder would make it more real. "They're taking the house. We're 3 months behind. We need a miracle." They laid out the numbers. It was a staggering sum, more than I had ever imagined. "We just need you to co-sign a loan, honey," my mom pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "Just to get us back on our feet. We'll handle the payments, we promise." I looked from their desperate faces to the foreclosure notice. I thought about my hard-won financial stability, the safety net I'd built for myself. I thought about Bianca, who was conspicuously absent from this crisis meeting. probably off finding herself at a yoga retreat they'd somehow still paid for. I took a deep breath. I'm not co-signing, I said. Their faces collapsed. I'll buy the house, I stated, my voice surprisingly steady. I'll pay off the mortgage in full. The deed will be transferred to my name. You can continue to live here, rent-free, for as long as you need. Those are my only terms. The silence that followed was so profound. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My dad's shoulders slumped in defeat. This wasn't the rescue they wanted. It was the rescue they needed, and it came with a price, their pride. Lena, this is our home, my mother finally said, her voice thin and reedy. And you're about to lose it, I replied, not unkindly, but firmly. This is the only way I can help, without jeopardizing my own future. My dad finally nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Fine, but this is still our home. This is just paperwork. A formality. We don't need to tell Bianca. It would only upset her. And there it was. Even in their moment of absolute dependence on me, their first thought was to protect Bianca's delicate feelings. I agreed. What was one more secret to carry? So I did it. I liquidated my savings, wiped out my carefully built investment portfolio, and became a homeowner. The transaction was cold and clinical. Signing the papers at the title company, I felt a strange mix of power and profound loneliness. I had saved them, but I had also become their landlord, a fact we all silently agreed to ignore. For 7 years, I was the invisible, structural beam holding up their world. I never asked for rent, never mentioned the property taxes I paid, never pulled rank. And in return, they never missed an opportunity to gush about Bianca's latest adventure over Sunday dinners I paid for with the groceries I brought. Then I met Alex. He was an architect, a man who built things for a living. He was stable, kind, with a dry sense of humor that snuck up on you. He saw me, not the problem solver, not the family ATM, but Lena, the woman who loved bad sci-fi movies and had a weirdly encyclopedic knowledge of 19th century poetry. For the first time, I felt truly, deeply chosen for who I was, not for what I could provide. I introduced him to my family with a nervous hope that maybe, just maybe, his presence would shift the dynamic. The first few dinners were fine, a carefully choreographed performance of familial normalcy. But Bianca, sensing a new audience, turned on the charm. It was a performance I knew well. The wide, sparkling eyes, the breathless laughter at his mildest jokes, the casual touches on his arm, the constant, fluttering attention she reserves for anything she can't stand to see me have. She's a lot, Alex said on the drive home after the second dinner. You have no idea, I sighed, a familiar dread settling in my stomach. She asked if you could get her an internship, didn't she? Pretty much. Said she had a natural eye for design and was looking for a mentor. I just shook my head. That was Bianca. She saw people not as individuals, but as opportunities. The bomb dropped on the 4th of July. The annual family barbecue was in full swing. The air was thick, with the smell of charcoal and citronella. The whole extended family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, I only saw on holidays. It was the usual chaos. At one point, my Aunt Carol, who means well but is notoriously clumsy, managed to spill a full pitcher of sweet tea all over the patio table. Lena, honey, my mom called out. Can you and Aunt Carol run down to the basement and get the spare tablecloth? The nice one, in the plastic bin. It was a 15-minute job, wrestling with a dusty plastic container in the humid basement. When we finally emerged, victorious with the folded tablecloth, the atmosphere had shifted. The laughter felt forced. People were avoiding my gaze. And Alex was standing by the back gate, his keys in his hand, his face a pale, rigid mask. We need to leave, now, he said, his voice low and tight. My heart plummeted. What happened? Are you okay? Not here. In the car. The drive was a silent, tense tunnel. I didn't press him. When we were a mile from the house, he finally spoke, staring straight ahead at the road. Bianca, he began, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. She pulled me into the pantry, said she wanted to show me some vintage wine my dad was saving. I closed my eyes, knowing what was coming. The second the door closed, she pushed me against the shelves and tried to kiss me. I shoved her off. I told her to never, ever do that. She just laughed. She said I was being, quote, dramatic, and that I knew I wanted to. My blood ran cold. Did anyone see? Your cousin, Mark. He was coming out of the bathroom. He saw me storm out of the pantry, looking, as he put it, like I'd seen a ghost. Bianca came out a minute later, and she was already putting on the waterworks. I was livid. A cold, clear fury I hadn't known I was capable of. I drove straight back to the house, leaving Alex in the car with the doors locked. I found Bianca by the now clean patio table, sipping a cocktail and looking utterly unconcerned. We need to talk. Now, I said, my voice dangerously calm. She had the audacity to look annoyed. What, Lena? Can't you see I'm relaxing? I didn't move. The driveway, now. She huffed, but followed me. The second we were out of earshot, I turned on her. What the hell is wrong with you? Her expression shifted in an instant. The annoyance melted away, replaced by wide, innocent eyes that instantly welled with tears. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Lena, oh my God, she whispered, her voice trembling. He came on to me, in the pantry. He was drunk, and he tried to kiss me. I was so scared, but I pushed him away. I didn't want to ruin your night, so I didn't say anything. The sheer, brazen audacity of it took my breath away. She wasn't just lying. She was gaslighting me with a performance that should have won an Oscar. Bullshit. I spat. Alex told me exactly what happened. Mark saw you. Mark saw him storm out, she cried, the tears now flowing freely. He saw how angry he was because I rejected him. Why are you taking his side? I'm your sister. I didn't have the energy to argue with a brick wall. I went back inside, my entire body shaking with rage. I found my parents in the living room, their faces etched with concern. Not for me, for Bianca. Lena, what is going on? My dad asked, his voice stern. Ask your golden child, I said, my voice cracking. She just tried to sexually assault my boyfriend in the pantry. My mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Lena, don't use that kind of language. I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding. Alex probably had too much to drink and got a little handsy. Bianca is just so vibrant. Men sometimes misinterpret her friendliness. I stared at her, my world tilting on its axis. They had already chosen, without a single question, without a moment of doubt. They had accepted Bianca's lie as gospel. Be the bigger person, Lena, my dad said, his tone final. Don't let a man come between sisters. Family is what matters. I left without another word. The ride home with Alex was silent. He was devastated, not just by Bianca's actions, but by my family's instant condemnation. They think I'm a predator, he said, his voice hollow. I held his hand, but I felt a chasm opening between us, dug by my family's betrayal. We tried to move past it, but the damage was done. Every time we talked about the future, the shadow of that night hung over us. How could we plan a life together when my family had branded him a liar and a creep? The trust was broken. We had a quiet, heartbreaking conversation in early December and decided to go our separate ways. It was mutual, and it was awful. I wasn't just mourning Alex. I was mourning the future we'd planned, the life I thought I was finally going to have. Then came the Christmas text. It arrived in the family group chat, a cheerful, bubbly message that felt like a physical blow. Asterisk, ho ho ho. Christmas celebration at our house, December 25th at 1 p.m. Potluck style. Can't wait to see everyone. P.S. So thrilled that Bianca is bringing Alex as her +1. They've worked through the little misunderstanding and are giving things a try. Love wins. Can't wait to see this beautiful couple under the mistletoe. Christmas tree red heart asterisk. I read it 3 times. The words blurred on the screen. Bianca was bringing Alex to Christmas. My Alex. And he had apologized. The betrayal was so complete, so utterly vicious, that I felt numb. I opened my text thread with Alex, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely type. What the actual hell is going on? His reply took 2 hours. Lena, I'm sorry. Bianca and I have been talking. She helped me see that I overreacted, that the whole thing was a big miscommunication. We've connected in a way I didn't expect. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I started laughing, a dry, hacking sound that had no humor in it. She had won. She had taken everything from me. My boyfriend, my family support, my dignity. And she had done it with a smile. And Alex, the man I thought was so strong and clear-sighted, had fallen for the oldest trick in the book. The damsel in distress, who was actually the dragon. That's when I remembered the paperwork. The one piece of leverage I had that they had all forgotten about, in their cozy little narrative. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer, Philip, a no-nonsense man in his 50s, who had helped me with my investment properties. Philip, it's Lena. Suzanne, how are you? What can I do for you? The house on Elm Street. I want to start the eviction process. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear him shifting in his leather chair. The one your parents live in? That's the one. Suzanne, are you sure? This is a nuclear option. This is your family. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said, my voice cold and flat. I want them served on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve? Suzanne, that's exceptionally harsh. They invited my ex-boyfriend to Christmas as my sister's date. Harsh is a relative term. Make it happen, Philip. I spent Christmas Day completely alone. I turned off my phone, unplugged the landline, and ordered enough Chinese food for 3 people. I watched Die Hard on a loop because it felt appropriately destructive. I didn't allow myself to picture them in my living room, opening gifts in front of my fireplace, with Alex sitting next to Bianca on my couch. I locked those images away in a box marked, "Do not open." On New Year's Eve, I was at a low-key party with a few colleagues from work. At 4:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Philip. "Process server made the delivery. They've been served. Batten down the hatches." I smiled, a real smile for the first time in weeks, and ordered a shot of tequila. The party raged around me, but I was in a bubble of cold, focused calm. My phone started blowing up around 6 p.m. First from my parents' numbers, then from numbers I didn't recognize. Their friends, probably. I ignored every single one. Let them marinate in their panic. Let their perfect holiday shatter into a million pieces. On the afternoon of New Year's Day, hungover but clear-headed, I finally listened to my voicemails. There were 17. My mom, voice thick with tears. "Lena, what is this? Some man came to the house with eviction papers. This has to be a mistake. Call me back. We need to fix this." My dad, roaring with fury. "I don't know what kind of sick joke you think you're pulling, but we need to talk. This is still our home. I don't care what some piece of paper says." Bianca, dripping with faux concern. "Lena, you're seriously going to kick mom and dad out of their house over a guy? That's messed up, even for you. Call me back so we can fix this before you embarrass yourself." Over a guy. They still didn't get it. This wasn't about Alex. This was about a lifetime of being second best. This was about being the emergency contact who was never contacted for anything good. I drafted a single text to the family group chat, the only message I'd sent since Thanksgiving. Asterisk. The house located at 123 Elm Street is legally owned by me, Lena Marie Walsh, and has been since October 2016, when I paid the mortgage in full to prevent foreclosure. I have allowed my parents to live there rent-free for the past 7 years as a courtesy. That courtesy is now revoked. They have 30 days to vacate the premises. Do not contact me again. Asterisk. Then I pressed send and immediately left the group chat. The fallout was thermonuclear. My phone exploded with texts and calls from aunts, uncles, cousins, even my grandmother. Half of them were horrified, calling me a monster, a vindictive bitch, saying I'd torn the family apart. The other half, the ones who had always seen the dynamic for what it was, sent me private messages of support. "It's about time," one cousin wrote. "They never appreciated you." Bianca, of course, tried to play the hero. She started a GoFundMe titled, "Help Our Parents Keep Their Home," which spun a sob story about a greedy, heartless daughter. It raised about $600 before people started asking questions in the comments, and she took it down in shame. Then, in early January, I got a text from Alex. "Lena, I heard about the house. I think we need to talk. I never meant for things to go this far. Daria and I aren't actually together. It was a mistake. I was confused and hurt, and she was just there. This is all such a mess. Can we please just talk?" I stared at the message, a fresh wave of contempt washing over me. He was backtracking. Now that the consequences were real, now that the fantasy had crumbled, he wanted to talk. I didn't respond. He wasn't worth the energy it would take to type a reply. I deleted the message and blocked his number. The legal battle was short and brutal. Philip called me in mid-January. They're not going quietly. They filed a motion to dispute the eviction, claiming a verbal rental agreement and tenant rights. We went to court on a bleak day in February. I wore a sharp, navy blue suit. I looked like what I was, a professional woman reclaiming her property. My parents were there with a lawyer, who looked like he'd been hired from a bus stop ad. Their argument was pure emotional manipulation. "Your Honor, these are elderly parents who relied on their daughter's verbal promise. To evict them now would be unconscionable." Philip was a stone wall. "Your Honor, my client is the sole owner of the property. She saved her parents from financial ruin. There is no lease, no rent, no written contract of any kind. She is simply exercising her legal right to reclaim her asset from individuals who have shown her profound personal disrespect." The judge, a weary-looking woman in her 60s, glanced at the paperwork. "Mr. and Mrs. Walsh, do you have any proof of a lease? A written agreement?" Their lawyer stammered. "We have a handwritten note from the plaintiff." The judge read the note I'd scribbled years ago. She looked up, unimpressed. "This is not a legal document. It's a note. Motion denied. Eviction order granted. Defendants have 14 days to vacate." It was over in 10 minutes. Outside the courtroom, my mother rushed up to me, her face a mask of desperation. "Lena, please. Where are we supposed to go? We have nowhere." I looked at her, this woman who had chosen a lie over her own daughter. I felt nothing. "You'll figure it out," I said, my voice quiet but firm. You're resourceful. We're your parents, she cried, her voice breaking. And Bianca is your daughter, I replied. Ask her for help. I'm sure she and Alex have plenty of room. My dad stepped forward, his face purple with rage. You're really doing this? Putting your own flesh and blood out on the street over a grudge? I met his gaze. My own steady. Some grudge, Dad. Bianca assaulted my boyfriend, and you called him the liar. Then you invited him to Christmas as her date. That's not a grudge. That's me finally accepting the reality you've shown me my whole life. You always choose her. Now you get to live with that choice. I turned and walked away. Philip, a silent, supportive presence at my side. Behind me, I heard my mother start to sob in earnest, and my dad shouting that I was a disgrace. They had 12 days left. The gossip mill churned. I heard through a neutral cousin that Bianca and Alex broke up almost immediately after the court date. The reality of supporting our parents and dealing with the fallout was apparently not as glamorous as the affair had been. Bianca, in a performative display of filial piety, moved our parents into her tiny, cluttered one-bedroom apartment. The three of them living in 600 square feet lasted less than 2 weeks before epic fights drove them all out. My parents eventually found a cramped, run-down 2-bedroom apartment across town they could barely afford. My dad, in his late 60s, took a job as a greeter at a Home Depot. My mom, for the first time in her life, got a part-time job as a cashier at a grocery store. They were, in their 60s, starting over from scratch because of the choices they had made. Bianca, ever the chameleon, rebranded. The last I heard, she's in real estate, probably telling desperate buyers that a condemned shed has good bones. As for me, I moved into my house. My house. I spent a month and $15,000 exorcising their ghosts. I painted over the dated wallpaper, tore up the stained carpets to reveal the beautiful hardwood underneath, and gutted the kitchen. I made it mine. The silence, which once felt like loneliness, now feels like peace. The people whose opinions used to matter have proven they never should have. About 2 months after I moved in, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother, handwritten on floral stationery. I didn't open it. I held it for a moment, feeling the weight of it, then filed it away with the eviction paperwork in a locked filing cabinet. A reminder of what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. I'm not the villain of this story. I was the lifeline they clung to, while praising the anchor that was dragging them down. I gave them 7 years of free housing. I believed the truth when it was inconvenient. I gave them chance after chance. They made their choice, over and over again. So, I made mine. They're living with the consequences. And I'm finally, blessedly living in peace.